to be fully present with an open heart to another in this age of quick encounters is not only a virtue, but a true gift.
Hello and welcome to the Sutra Squad podcast, brought to you by One Deep Breath. My name is Seth Barron, and I'm here with my superstar Sutra Squad, Sarah Page Hall.
Good morning, afternoon, whenever you're listening.
And Sally Moore.
Hello.
And we are going to review a verse from the third chapter. So we're sort of in the series of what we are to us is some of the greatest hits of the Yoga Sutra, before we sort of start over at the beginning of 2026. 2026. Isn't that, don't you, like, that's like a number when I was a kid that just seemed like we were promised flying cars. Although then I think about like what we're doing here, it's Jetson stuff, right? But then I think about what we're doing here and it's like, no, but we, like, some of that's for real. Like talking to people all over the world by video on any device at any time. Like that's some Jetsons nonsense that we're living. Anyway, so we're going to start at the beginning of the year. We're going to start again at the beginning and work our way through the whole sutras, the whole text, not every single one, but in more depth. And we're covering a verse today from the third chapter of the Yoga Sutra. But before we go too far, let's just do our little check-in. Sally, what is one word that describes how you feel right now?
Proud. Which that doesn't come easy for me. So I'm going to take it.
Take it. Beautiful. Sarah Page?
Content. And that doesn't come easy for me either. I'm content. Like I try to not think about it. I just spit out the word that comes out. Content came out.
Yeah. I'm like right on the edge of overwhelm, and like I actually love that, like teetering toward like just almost too much. I think I'm actually at my best when I'm like operating at like 90 to 110% capacity at any given time. So we're looking at a verse today from the third chapter. And just as a little like breadcrumbs on like structure, like where are we in the text? The first chapter is the Samādhi Pāda that sort of describes like where we're going. The second chapter is the Samādhi Pāda, the Sadhana Pāda, and that's like how you get there. Now we're taking this dip into the third chapter, which is the Vibhuti Pāda. And it means like the chapter on accomplishments or powers. And it's sort of like what arises or what then becomes available to the yogi along the way as you traverse the eight-limbed path. And it describes the siddhis, or the powers that the yogi can attain by virtue of dedicated practice. That's all I'll say for now on that. And then we'll get it, because we'll talk more about it when we get into the actual verse. So let's just take a moment, and I'm going to chant the verse. But if you want to join me for one Om, you could, if it is safe, wherever you are. Just turn your attention inward for a moment. And if you can close your eyes and bring your hands together in front of your heart. Deep breath in. Let it go. And you can join me for one vibration of Om. Inhale. Yoga Sūtra 324. Maitri adasu balani. Maitri adasu balani. Maitri adasu balani. So this verse has three sparse and tremendously meaningful words. The first is maitri. We've actually talked about maitri on this podcast before. It is the first of the keys presented in Sutra 133, the locks and the keys, which we talked about a few weeks ago. Maitri, karunya, mudito, pekshanam, sukha, dukkha, punya, vishayanam, bhavanatas, chitta, prasadnam, which are the four highest attributes of maitri, karunya, mudito, and upekshanam. Maitri means, sometimes it's translated as friendliness. It's really more, and it is, and it's also sometimes, especially in Buddhist practice, the same word when translated into Pali is, they translate often as loving kindness. So that's the first word of this verse, maitri adasu balani, maitri, friendship or loving kindness. Adasu, beginning with, I want to check a different, where did I put that? Master Iyengar translates it as so forth. And then Balani is strength, power, that again, Master Iyengar in Light on the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali translates as moral and emotional. And it's always fascinating, these short verses, to hear how they're translated. Master Iyengar gives us, he, let's say they, gain moral and emotional strength by perfecting friendliness and other virtues towards one and all. The Jivamukti Yoga Chant Book, which has some really lovely translations of Yoga Sutra, includes this one, 324. Through friendliness, kindness, and compassion, strength comes. Sally and Sarah Page, are there other translations that call to your heart of this verse?
Yeah, let me share from The Secret Power of Yoga from Nishala Joy Devi. By samyama, on kindness and other virtuous qualities, one develops the power to transmit those qualities to others.
By samyama, on friendliness and other virtuous qualities, one develops the ability, power, to transmit those to others. And we should just take a moment and make sure that we also identify it's a good word to make sure we clarify samyama. Samyama is the integrated practice of the last three limbs of the Ashtanga yoga path. And we talked about all 8 limbs last week. And those last 3, Dhārana, to place your attention, or it's sometimes said to be concentration. Dhyāna, to sustain your attention, which we could also call meditation. And Samādhi, which is like, again, like the full blissful absorption of awakening, of transcendence, of connection, of yoga. My teacher Rima gave a beautiful framing of this as a quick build from last week when we talked about the all 8 limbs, yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dhārana, dhyāna, samādhi. So again, those last 3 is samyama. But she said something I had never quite heard before. We talk a little bit about actions and outcomes as those 8 steps, and how the first are actions and then the end are outcomes. But fascinatingly, Rima talked about pratyahara, which is usually translated as sensory withdrawal, as the bridge from the external to the internal. I know this really rocked my world, and that's why I thought I would bring it up, with all credit to my blessed teacher. That it's this idea that like the first 4 steps in this path are external action, right? The yama and the niyama, which is the moral code of the yogi as to how we are in the world and our personal practices. Asana, the seat, the space we take. Pranayama, the energy we exchange with the material world around us. And then we get to pratyahara, and it's like that, it's the turning in. It's the intentional restriction of some sensory stimulus so that we can place our attention with more clarity. And that's how you get to Dhārana, Dhyāna, Samādhi. I just thought that was really beautiful and a nice aside to think about. That again, it's this idea of like, it's the bridge from the internal, from the external to the internal. And I thought it was worth talking about because we're talking about a practice of samyama, to place our attention, to hold it there, and then maybe even if we are so lucky, experience a moment of like pure blissful connection and total absorption in it. Sarah Paige, was there another translation that you really loved of this verse?
Yeah, there is. I was looking up a word. I love what Master Iyengar also says, but at the end of it, he says, with his mind cleansed, his being what I'm reading, he says, with his mind cleansed of such weaknesses, an amiability evolves which spreads happiness to all. His equipoise of mind creates a graceful disposition of heart. So I had to go look up equipoise because I thought I knew what it meant, but I didn't. And it says, equanimity, balance, parity, a balance of forces or interests. So it makes me wonder, okay, where are my interests? Where do my interests lie also? Because this seems to me to be a lot about, they mention a lot in this sutra about the elephant's strength and that kind of thing. So this is a lot about strength, so forces. But it doesn't talk a lot about, what are your interests?
That is interesting. And something it reminds me of is also the verse on ahimsa. So ahimsa is the first of the yamas. It's sort of the beginning of the beginning. Ahimsa pratistayam tat samnidau vaira tyaga. So this verse, the translation is, in the presence of one firmly established in nonviolence, all hostilities cease. And it's this idea that when you are pratistayam is like to be firmly established in, that when you are so established in the practice of nonviolence or not causing harm, all harm around you ceases. And it's a similar idea that like when we call into these attributes, maitri is the one listed here, when we call in friendliness and loving kindness, we gain strength. So where does that loving kindness flow freely in your life? Like, where does it feel really accessible?
I was thinking about this a lot last night. And for me, the where, it's not so much where, it's anywhere when I remember to put my attention on loving kindness. Loving kindness flows more easily when I feel content versus where I physically am. Sometimes where I physically am, it's like easier. But when I'm tired or in a story about being tired or whatever it is, out of balance, I find it much harder to access loving kindness. And we talked about it a little bit before we started recording, like generally I can screw up the loving kindness for others, but if I cannot be loving and kind to myself, it's a pretty superficial screwing up of loving and kindness for others. But when I can give it to myself, then it's like I am fully immersed in it. And then it just is exactly what you were saying. I find it everywhere and anywhere.
Sarah Paige, how about for you?
Okay, well, I still struggle a little bit with this because I feel like, I don't know. I think it can be seen also not to bypass, I'm trying to choose my words very clearly, that, I'm nice to everybody, I'm loving to everybody, and then still there's this, people are not nice and kind. So I don't want to bypass, and I think, Sally, you really touched on it. It goes deeper than just it goes deeper than being nice to people. It goes deeper than being loving and kind. It goes deeper than that because it's not easy. It's easy for me to be nice and kind. But then when I get in my car and I shut the door, how am I really? When I come into my home, am I being loving and kind to that person? Or those people that were not kind to me? Or am I being judgmental? So for me, it is work. In the past 2 years, I've had some really awful things happen, as have we all. So this is, I'm looking at this and the strength of elephants and all of that kind of stuff. I'm like, I got to get stronger because I get stuck in my righteousness because maybe these people or this situation was not loving and kind. And I am right in feeling this way and I shouldn't have to feel loving and kind. So for me personally, it's work. What is true loving kindness and not bypass? Where am I contented? Where am I really thoughtfully contented and okay? Don't mean to be the rebel here, but that's really where I sit with it.
But I hear you. Like, I don't feel like the sutra is asking us to be sweet to people who treat us poorly. You know what I mean? Like, it's a real, and that's, I think, where I'm going is like, there's all kinds of behaviors going out there. But when I'm kind and loving to myself, I can have more distance and less personalization. And I can give people that possibly, are we all doing the best we can? I've had this conversation with so many people. It doesn't always look like we're doing the best we can. But are we I have more space to say they're doing their best they can. And that doesn't mean you get to walk all over me or push me around, but it means that there is loving kindness at the root for me.
That I can get behind. And I have to say too, I really appreciate this because I'm working through this as we talk. I can read this, and it's right here, but when we talk, it goes deep. And that's where the work for me personally is. And if you look at, Sally, you referenced this last week, like looking at the sutra before, I'm looking at the sutra next to, at least with the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, Satchitananda's version, says about samyama, which I think this is great. He goes on and on and on, but at the end of it, he goes, you can lighten yourself or you can make yourself heavy. It's all achieved by samyama. And then I love this. He goes, do it. Try it. Nice things will happen. It's like, have I tried it? Have I really tried it? Dhyāna, Dhārana, Samādhi. Have I really tried it or am I just lip servicing it?
Yeah, so just for context there, the next verse, also frequently referenced is Balesu Hasti Baladani, Baladini, excuse me. And it's by samyama, on the strength of elephants and other such animals, their strength is attained. And so I'll just read a couple of the highlights from the commentary there. It is not that the elephant will come to you, but the strength of the elephant. You acquire that strength. If you do samyama on the rock of Gibraltar, you will become real rocky. That means you will also become so heavy. You just simply stand on the scale and weigh 110 pounds. Stand on it doing samyama on the rock of Gibraltar, the scale will immediately burst. In the same way, if you do samyama on a feather, the scale will record only 0. You can lighten yourself. You can make yourself heavy. It's all achieved by samyama. Do it. Try it. Nice things will happen. So first of all, we should just say, there are plenty of people who really do take this, there is a literal interpretation of this, as in, there are yogis who have achieved unbelievable powers after, the samyama isn't just okay, I'm doing samyama. It's dedicated, sustained, rigorous practice. These are not, these achievements, these powers, these abilities don't just casually arise. And the powers that arise are not to be taken lightly either. There's another verse way later in the third chapter too, that cautions us that if we practice to achieve these powers, we will inevitably fail, and that the powers themselves can be impediments to yoga, because we can get fixed on this as an outcome, as opposed to acknowledging that these kinds of powers, achievements, or capabilities arise almost when we need them for our collective liberation, as opposed to the pursuit of the powers for their own sake. And it's something we've asked ourselves before. It's this question of where are you putting your attention? Are you placing your attention with intention? So often we live out in a world where we're in a reactive state to circumstances around us. That's to me one of the highest expressions of chitta vritti. Like you're just like, your mind is like in the pinball machine. Pong, 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 pong. You're bouncing around, bouncing, cling, 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 cling. Like, and when we place our mind on one thing, the Dhārana, when we keep it there, the Dhyāna, and allow ourselves to allow the separateness to fade and fully connect and absorb with, that's maybe Samādhi. And again, there's like an integrated practice. Those three practices can't really be extricated from each other. They're deeply, deeply integrated. And that's samyama. It's also interesting to note too, like the Buddhists refer to maitri and the other three Brahmaviharis, the highest attributes, where they're referred to as the immeasurables. As in, there is no fixed amount. They are always available in immeasurable depth and volume when we seek them. Sarah Page and I were at a kirtan last night, and the kirtan leader told a beautiful parable that I'm going to reference, and I hope I get it close to accurate. But he told a story that there was a wandering sadhu, a wandering holy man, who came upon a village. And when he arrived, the villagers welcomed him very, very warmly. And they said, please allow us to fetch you water. We have the most clear, pristine water, and that you should enjoy. And so he has some water, and they take very good care of him. And he thanks them and moves on the next day to the next town, where he is greeted enthusiastically. Please, sadhu, allow us to fetch you water. We have the most wonderful, clear, pure, pristine water. And they're very proud of their water. And the sadhu accepts, and he goes on to a third town, and the same thing happens. He goes on to a fourth town, and the same thing happens. And he finally asks the local priest, like the pujari, what's with the water? All you guys seem to be saying you have the best water. So like, whose water is the best? Like, what is the story with this water? And the pujari confides in him that it's all from the same source. They've all dug wells that have tapped into the same aquifer, the same source. And so the teaching is that if we dig our well deep enough, we will tap into the same source. And it's, I think, a really nice parable to think about in this idea of maitriyada subalani, of like, when we put our attention on loving kindness and friendliness, we gain strength, as in, like, when we dig our well deep enough to find the infinite pool of loving kindness and friendliness, from which we can also then access the other three attributes: karunya, compassion; mudito, joy and sympathetic joy; and upekshanam, or upeksha, equanimity. Like, when we dig our well deep enough, we can derive great, great strength in that place. And like, I know for me, where like the rightness locks me out. Right is a paradigm that requires wrong. Like, I can't be right without somebody else being wrong. And there's no loving kindness there. It's ego. It's the illusion of ego there. And it takes training. It takes training and I think a lot of courage, because it means that, like, we have to acknowledge our own capacity for being wrong, or just our own capacity to even transcend right and wrong into a place where we can bear witness to the suffering of others without claiming it as our own, or feeling responsible for it as our own, while still acknowledging the depth of that suffering of another. It's very subtle, but it's also very powerful. It reminds me, RuPaul at the end of every episode says, if you can't love yourself, how in the hell are you going to love somebody else? Right? And I sort of wonder if this is a practice that starts within.
I got to tell you, I just, I got to thinking about this, and again, and there's certain translations that are just going to get meatier. And this is the textbook of yoga psychology. And of course, it opened right up to it because I had 100 things underlined here. And I love the way that he talks about friendliness, compassion, and he's written by Ramurti S. Mishra, MD. Friendliness, compassion, and compliance are three great feelings. By feeling friendliness and fellowship for living beings who are in happiness, he discovers the mental and moral power of friendliness and fellowship. By feeling compassion for those who are in misery and suffering, he discovers the power of compassion. By feeling joy for those who are disposed to merit, he discovers the power of joy. By developing, and this is what I think is really helpful for me in this moment, by developing neither hate nor love for sinners, he cultivates the power of judgment and impartiality. The result of cultivation of these feelings and sentiments is the energy of Samādhi. And it just goes on. And then he goes, a tremendous amount of psychic energy is utilized by psychic operations in these activities. Consequently, physical, moral, mental, and spiritual forces become weaker and weaker. The result of jealousy is physical and mental diseases. Individual, domestic, social, national, international, and cosmic disorganization follows. And I just thought that's what's going on in our life, isn't it? It's not just us. It is cosmic. It is everybody. I don't know. I know that kind of rambled on a bit, but it meant, I like to think of us as the cosmic whole, not just individual.
It's like that digging deep into the well. Like it's almost like when we all dig. For me, it's like the ego presents, and then we have a choice to see the ego as separate from our true self. Not that ego is good or bad, but it often, like for me, I make things too much about me when I don't have my attention on friendliness and loving kindness. And then
that's a big one. Sally, say, like, when you say you make it too much about me, say more.
Well, just to, like, I'm the victim of everything. People's behavior has anything and everything to do with me. It's not true, right? We're all digging as deep as we're willing to go in this well. But what I love is when I really take the time to put the practices in, everything is unlocked. And like sadness or loneliness, they're lifted, and it becomes something different no matter what chapter of my life I'm in.
It reminds me of something a teacher, in a teacher training, around meditation practice. I once heard this turn of phrase that, you just it just burned into my brain. We are all victims of our own relentless self-obsession. Right? We are all victims of our own relentless self-obsession. This is part of, I think, like maybe the ultimate eternal paradox that we have to sit with, which is, my perception is so limited. It's trapped in this meat bag that's called Seth. And I can't ever get out of it. Like I will never see the world, at least in this plane of our awareness, I will never see the world through anyone else's eyes or from any other perspective. I am trapped.
But I think the brilliance in what you're saying is once we recognize that truth of this human existence, we actually can see bigger.
Well, and this is the strength. I think, of the sutra, that it's when we, sometimes it's like, I think of it as unclenching a little bit, like when we unclench the ego, because there's a big difference between nice and kind.
I've been thinking this in the background the whole time.
Sally, say it, then say more. Keep going.
Well, I just think because a lot of times through life, people have like, you're so nice. And I'm very triggered by that because nice to me is more of a surface level charade sometimes. And kind is like deep from within. Like kind people give feedback. Kind people have boundaries. kind people stand for themselves and others, right? Nice is just like, oh yeah, you're so cute today. I don't know. I mean, it's different.
I think too, kind people do things without any ego involved. Kind people do things not to be seen. They do it behind the scenes, and they don't do it with the ego involved.
Yes, this is the point I want. I thought I wanted us to land. That's exactly it. Nice is so often because we're doing it because we think we're supposed to, or because we want something in return. Oh, look at that. Balloons. Is a differently selfless motivation. Kind is the thing you do when no one's looking. Right? The highest form of tzedakah, which is charity in Hebrew and Jewish practice, is anonymous. Real kindness is never with an expectation of reciprocity. It is simply for its own sake. Right? It's holding the door open for a stranger and not expecting them to do anything else because I'm here and so I'm going to hold the door open. I mean, I'm just using a small little example, right? Or like whether or not this is a practice I have, like, and it's funny. I say thank you to Siri and I say thank you. Oh no, she's going to wait, don't do anything, Siri. I don't want to. I should like mouth the word, right? Like I find myself saying thank you to like these like inanimate or like, because it's like, I don't want to lose the practice of saying thank you when something, even if it's an artificial thing, does something for me. Like, does it matter that I say thank you to, you know, that AI agent? No, not really, but it does matter to me. Because I always worry if I'm out of the practice of it, then I'll just expect somebody, like if then in a human interaction, I would just like disregard it. Or like, you know, this one I really struggle with, but I try really hard. There's this weird phenomenon, especially in New York, like you go into a coffee shop and the barista has AirPods in and they're barely listening to you. It makes me crazy. Makes me crazy. So I have to get curious about what's making me crazy. Pay attention to me. I'm important. I'm the customer. Me. That's part of what's going on. But then I just make a practice. Like, it doesn't matter if they're rude to me or if they're disrespectful. I just say thank you. I just say thank you. It's for me. And I hope it's for them too.
You mentioned the word expectation. I think that that's another part of it. Doing things without any expectation of with any, you're so kind, none of that.
Yeah, this isn't because you're looking for the award or the recognition or the pat on the back or anybody to do anything for you in return.
I want to share a line that, once again, was in The Secret Power of Yoga. And it just really brought this home for me. And it just said, to be fully present with an open heart to another in this age of quick encounters is not only a virtue, but a true gift.
Oh, read that again, Sally, please.
To be fully present with an open heart to another in this age of quick encounters is not only a virtue, but a true gift. And I want to follow with a little story from last night. I was driving home from San Francisco. It's like an hour and a half from my house. And I was meeting my family in a little town called Winters, just outside where we live. And they have the sweetest tractor parade. All these different farm people come with these huge tractors, small tractors, forklifts, and they decorate them all for the holidays. It's super fun. And this tiny town, it draws from all over. It's packed, like it's a packed out experience. But both my kids and my grandkids, they were all going to be there, and their other grandparents. It's a nightmare to park because this entire town is taken over. And my son was like, here, I've dropped a pin where to park. But every time I tried to do there, the road was blocked off for this tractor. So 45 minutes into trying to park, I was losing my attention on kindness and the gift of this opportunity. And I was just going to give up. And I was flipping a U once again at the barricade where I was trying to get to the other side of the main street where the parade is. And this, it might have been my age, seemed like a little bit older man, came out and said, are you going to the parade? And I go, well, I was going to, but I can't park. My grandkids are there. And he said, block my driveway. You're fine. pull, and then he helped me. He goes, I'm going to help you to fit into this little block driveway because I want my son's car to be able to get out if he has to go before you come back. And I just said, thank you. And I went to the parade with a whole different, like his kindness in that moment, because a lot of people, I'm sure it's a nightmare if you live there, blocked their streets. They put cones out, they blocked parking, because I'm sure it's just like there's thousands of people there. Long story short, and then he had me call my son so that he could explain to me how to get where my son and my daughter and the grandkids were. Like this man from nowhere. It's for us freezing. It was, 48 degrees out. For us, we're freezing out there. And I walked over there and I did kind of think to myself, I'm not exactly sure where I parked, but oh well. And it was just, the kids were thrilled, and it's just a very sweet experience, this tractor parade. It's super fun. And then I was walking back and I was kind of concerned, like, I'm not sure where I parked. And when I got to the street that I was parked on, the man was standing in the street and he said, I was worried that you weren't sure where you parked, and I wanted to make sure you got back to your car. And I just looked at him and I just said, your kindness, and I might get teary-eyed here, but I was like, it changed my day. It changed my week. It might have changed my month or my life. Like, I am so grateful for your kindness, And after I left, I thought, why didn't I get his address so I can send him a thank you? I think he was like, it's fine, But it was just like, I think that's where we get the strength from. That's how we bring this into the world.
That's so perfect, Sally. And what a beautiful story. Because that's really the practice. It's, of course, I find it very easy to be kind to the two of you, and to feel into this incredible, deep well of loving kindness that I know we share. And then, how do we do that out in the world? And not in a way too that I've used this turn of phrase that I really love. I first heard it from Tara Brach: a strong back and a soft front. Practicing kindness, practicing loving kindness, and calling in that attribute is not that we allow others to take advantage of us, or that we don't have boundaries, or that we just allow ourselves to be of service to the point of our own detriment, as if to say that that kind of selflessness means that we should be in constant sense of sacrifice. I think that's actually a bypass in and of itself, right? Those people who they go above and beyond, they do all the extra, but then there's this constant sense that you feel like they're waiting for something to come back to them. Or then when they don't get what they want, they're very aggrieved, or they feel somehow like I didn't get what I deserve.
I did all this work and nothing.
Right. So it's really tricky. And that's natural too. Of course we want to receive the fruit of virtuous action. But that's also part of the trap. So let's just, as we think about our inquiry and a teaching tip, how do we call this in the world we live in out here every day? Certainly in the yoga studio, I'll just start by saying, for an inquiry, when I get into the mindset of othering, I have to really get myself in check.
Define othering, Seth. Go a little deep in that.
Okay. A guy shows up to take your class and they're just doing something weird in the corner. There's just that one guy who's doing something weird in the corner. And you're like, why aren't you doing what I say? You come to class, I'm the teacher, do what I say. I have had that thought. Instead of the starting just from a place of wow, I'm so glad he came. Everybody needs yoga. I know nothing about this guy's body, about his mind, about his heart, and about his spirit, except that I see his physical presence. I don't know what he's going through, what's going on for him, what is going on in his body, heart, spirit, right? I know nothing. So the first step toward this to me is curiosity. If I haven't dug my well deep enough yet, the first step I try to remind myself is to set, even if I can't quite get to the like, oh, I love you, I'm distracted by you. And then I have to get curious. Like, what's going on for that person? Because how could I offer them, like, there's a premise in our shared lineage of yoga, speak into each and every. How do I offer something to the room that is accessible to everyone, even if it's going to look different in different bodies? So one inquiry for me here is like, so that's what I mean by the othering. I've made him the other because I'm like, we're all doing one thing and you're doing something different. All these good students are listening to me and listening to my perfect cues. But you're over there puffing and puffing and I don't know what's going on. So that's one point of inquiry is like, can I start from a curious place?
You know, there was something you said, Sally, last night I was in the city, went to Kirtan, went to dinner with my daughter who has Down syndrome. She has some perceptual issues. Going up and down stairs is difficult. And I thought I had done everything exactly right. Nonstop train into the city, no having to stop anywhere, go up and down steps. Until we hit Penn Station at 9:15 in the evening. And the sea and the mass of humanity that was there was, I thought I need to just go outside and get an Uber because this is crazy. So we start going down the steps. Elizabeth is deeply anxious. She has Down syndrome. She's like, I can't get a railing because everybody was sitting on the steps, even though there are signs everywhere saying don't sit on the steps. Everybody's sitting on the steps. I'm terrified. I don't want my daughter to fall. I'm judging everybody on the steps. Some of these people are unhoused and they just need a place to be warm. And all of a sudden, this man reaches up his hand and says, I'll help her. He was unhoused, clearly. And he helped her down the steps. Elizabeth didn't care what he looked like, didn't care about any of that. She is a well of loving kindness, authentically, and friendliness. And she's like, wow, thank you, sir. That was so kind. I was like, oh. Okay. And then I had to check myself. So we get down to the bottom and I'm like, thank you very much. Get down to the bottom, sea of humanity. Everybody going to the gates. If you've never been into Penn Station, it's a special place. And the holidays, it's a really special place. And so everybody, okay, you know, this track, that track, and everybody, whoa, it's just this mass. Track 10 was ours. Over there, I pull on my child and we're running. And I had been talking to this woman next to me. We get to the steps, this big, straight down, 5,000 people trying to go down it. It was an escalator that didn't work. She was terrified. I was far more concerned about the 5,000 people that we were holding up. The woman that I was talking to comes next to me. She takes her hand. She goes, Mama, you go down there. I've got her. And walks her all the way down, holding. She goes, they can wait. They can wait. And she just held up 500 people so that my daughter safely. Did I do that? No. This woman, this stranger, this angel, made sure that she got down all the way. And it led to me going, why do I get so frustrated? Why am I so concerned about these 500 people and not my daughter in the same way? Checked me hugely. I can be nice and kind to a lot of people. But when it comes, you know, am I choosing the people I choose to be kind to?
I mean, that's really it, right? Like, we don't get to choose. That's the really hard part.
I was not kind to my own child, who I love more than life itself. I was like, let's move. We don't want to be seen as those people. The people I should have been kind to was my daughter. She was scared. It was terrifying. She didn't see the steps the way that she sees steps. I could have done what that woman did, who was deeply kind. I'm convinced she was an angel. I never saw her again. You know, I'm convinced she was an angel.
You know, she was not only kind to your daughter, she was kind to everyone behind that learned a lesson to slow down. Like, this is exactly the kind of story that it's so much bigger. Like if we're in the story of like, I don't want to slow people down. What if there's a gift in people realizing like, oh, someone needs us to slow down?
And I did say, my daughter has a physical disability. She's having some trouble. And everybody behind, she's like, don't worry about it. We're fine. We're fine.
Wow, so you just created kindness
I wasn't
in
fine.
Penn Station on a Saturday night.
That is
Woohoo!
a yogic power. That is a yogic power for sure. That is a yogic achievement for sure.
I mean, I would say that my daughter created and that woman created. You know, Elizabeth was scared. And I did not, you know, that is something that brings up a well of emotion to me because I find sometimes I do get frustrated with my daughter. But this woman created the kindness. So thank you, Sally, for giving it to me. But maybe it was created by my daughter and this woman. But the lesson was for all of us, definitely.
I'm still giving it to all of you. I'm giving it to you, the woman, and Elizabeth, because it takes something to take a breath.
Thank you.
And realize, whoa, this is a challenging moment, and I am doing the best I can.
Thank you. That gives me some healing. That gives me a little bit of salve over my heart.
Sally, you always have a great string of inquiry questions for us.
I got a string. I've been actually trying to think, why is it a string? But whatever, here it is. What happens when you put your attention on being, friendliness versus doing niceness?
Oh, on being, friendliness versus doing niceness. Love that.
What do you notice when you choose compassion to all living beings without exception or condition? Hard one. What might be possible if you focus on equanimity, giving yourself and others the benefit of the doubt?
So good.
I'm going to clarify mine because I gave a big old story. Are you choosing who you are kind to? And are you kind to those who it is very difficult to be kind to? Or just to the ones that are easy to be kind to? Not nice, kind.
So we're going to wrap with one quick, one teaching tip because as Sally said it once, and I've just full on appropriated it, but I will give credit where it's due, that the best teacher is the one on your mat. And so all three of us give asana classes, and a lot of you out there probably are yoga teachers, but it doesn't matter if you're listening, you're a teacher. Welcome. You can teach someone something. I'm sure of it. So what's a tip to teach some of this idea, some of this sutra actually in the world in class, Sarah Page?
I love this. And I'm going to go towards it's kindness and ego. Notice how many times you say, my students, I. Anytime you bring yourself into it, do this for me. Try this on for me. No, try it on for yourself. So just notice how many times I've started noticing this a lot. My students, they're not your students. They're our students. They're their own student. And how many times do you say I in class?
I'm just going to invite you to put your attention on equanimity, to be open to the pose and what it has to offer to you. And accepting of however the practice shows up in your body in each moment, however your life is showing up in your body in each moment, noticing resistance and bringing in friendliness and compassion.
I heard an artist featured on NPR yesterday, and I'm always like, I'm always be playlisting, so like I just went to Spotify and he had there's this amazing I'll shout him out. He's this like young Irish singer-songwriter, and his name is Dove Ellis, and there's a track called Love Is. DOVE ELLIS. And I got down this, I started going down this rabbit hole because I remember hearing the song name, and then I just searched on Spotify, Love Is. And the number of tracks that all start with Love Is. Love is a stranger. Love is going to save us. Love is gone. Love is not enough. Love is the drug. Love is the message. Love is in the air. I want to know what love is.
Love is a battlefield.
So my playlist for class today is Love Is. And I'll send it to you both. Sade has a track called Love is Stronger Than Pride. It's really good, you guys. It's a really good playlist. So what I'm going to end the track. So sometimes sometimes we work from the inside out. Sometimes we work from the outside in right. So like, cause I was thinking about this sutra and I was thinking about how love is all of these things. Like how is it? And the answer is, it's like, you just keep digging the well deeper till you get to the big LOVE. So the inquiry for students is like, what is love for you right now? And how do you practice from that? Doesn't matter what cue I'm going to give you. Like, how do you source it from a place of love? Because that source is within you. It's in you right now. So when you notice your mind shift, when you notice the breath come away from yourself, like, let it be from a place of love that you come back. I was actually a little chuffed with myself about that one. It came together really well. Not gonna lie.
Yay.
I'm such a nerd. Okay. That's a perfect place maybe to leave it. I love you, and I love you, and we love you, our listeners, so much. If you have derived any benefit or value or have found interest, please consider subscribing to our podcast, and please consider sharing it. Please consider leaving us a review, and we are so grateful for your time, for your attention, for your love, for digging the well with us, and being on the journey together. It's a wild ride, but it's the best one, I know. It's the best one I've found so far. So with that, I'll just say thank you so much, Sarah Page. Thank you, Sally Moore.
Thank you. I just realized, I think love is at that bottom of that well.
Yeah. I think it is. I think it must be. And thank you to every single one of you who encounters the sound of our voice, and go out there and give some love. You'll feel good.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Have a great everything.